everybody. Let's go ahead and get started. So today we're very pleased to have Sara Waller here to give this week's rough cut. I want to remind everyone to go online and see the rest of the semester's schedule. We've got a really great lineup. I'm Rich Reddy. I'm the Associate Director of the Institute on Ecosystems. One of the goals of the Rough Cut seminar is to try to introduce people to people who are doing research in other disciplines, so that we can kind of try to foster thinking about how we might collaborate across disciplines. And so today I'm very excited to have someone coming from a discipline that we don't have as much participation from. And it's very exciting that Sara was able to come here. Sara is an associate professor of philosophy here at Montana State University. Prior to being here, she had faculty positions at Case Western and Cal State Dominguez Hills.
Yep.
Her research focuses on philosophy of the mind and philosophy of neurology and cognitive sciences. I'm very excited to hear what you've been up to.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here. And I need to start with a couple of thank yous. Thank you to Canid for helping with all of the wonderful technology and the acoustic atlas at the library. The equipment that you got for these projects is being used well, and you will see some of it today. But also I need to thank the IOE, because I came last week and learned all about how to build a park in northeastern Montana, and learned that they were reintroducing foxes into that population starting in September. And I wrote to them and I said, I have a student who's been dying to do a project on fox vocalizations. Can we come and record there? Can we come and participate? And they said, yes, we would love to have you and bring your students and set up your research. And so soon I will have a fox project to add to my wolves, coyotes, and cats. So quick shameless advertising, eat at the South Ninth Bistro, and we're off. So this may be the roughest rough cut talk ever because I am hard at work on a cat paper that is due on Sunday, and you will get to see a lot of the cat paper because I'm in the midst of it. So this talk focuses a bit more on cats than on wolves and coyotes, but I'm going to give you a survey of the kind of research that I've done since I've been at Montana State and show you my research partners and so on and so forth. So what's the philosophical background? We're very interested in cooperation and cognition. As people who study ecosystems probably know from bacteria, you can have all sorts of interesting, seemingly cooperative processes, and yet we don't think that bacteria are very smart. So, but it does seem like in the more sophisticated mammals that there is a link between cooperation and cognition. So if you get wolves that are hunting, they're vocally signaling to each other, they monitor each other's motions and adjust their behavior, and this requires learning and memory. Some have even speculated consciousness, so I understand that I'm not supposed to say that in the biological circles. So we have all of these complicated coordinated behaviors much like human beings do, and yet it is very hard for us to understand what their vocalizations mean, what are their signal systems. Human beings are not particularly good at recognizing other languages. Once we pass that critical phase where you're exposed to language and you learn to parse the words in that language, we're actually quite bad at doing it later on in life. And why do we think we would be any good at recognizing whether other creatures have a language or not? We're not very good at parsing something that's random versus something that's patterned but sophisticated. So the party line is that animals do not have language or do not have language that's anything like human language. But the bottom line is we don't have any evidence for that claim. It's just sort of a cautious presupposition that we make. I'm going to show you the work of another researcher for just a minute and a half, and hopefully it will pop up. Maybe it will not pop up. Yay, it's popping up. So that you get an idea of the kind of work that we are doing.
Hello, my name is Kon Slobodchikov. I would like to tell you about the studies that my students and I have been doing in decoding the language of prairie dogs. Our studies have concentrated primarily on the language of one of the 5 species of prairie dogs, the Gunnison's prairie dog. However, it is very likely that the other 4 species of prairie dogs also have similar complexity in language. Prairie dogs have alarm calls that they give when they see a predator. These alarm calls are a series of relatively high-pitched notes that sound somewhat like a bird chirping. The alarm calls have been a Rosetta Stone for us in decoding prairie dog language because we can see the predator approach, we can record the alarm calls of the prairie dogs in response to the predator, we can videotape the escape responses of the prairie dogs, and then, when there is no predator present, we can play back the alarm calls that we previously recorded and videotape the escape responses of the prairie dogs to the playback. If the escape responses to the playback match those that happened when the predator was present, then we know that there is meaningful information encoded into the alarm call.
So I just wanted to show you the first 90 seconds or so of that. Our project, because we work more with predators, we're not doing a lot of playbacks yet, but we're working on collecting different kinds of calls in different behavioral contexts and for a lot of different reasons. And I also love his video because he uses the same software that I do. So it was recognizable. So hopefully we will get to playbacks in the future. Let's see if I can make this go away. Yes, okay. Mastery of technology. So it's a similar project. We got together, and these are two of my research partners. This is Arik, who's at Cambridge. This is Yushu, he's at Cornell. And we founded what we call the Cooperative Predator Vocalization Consortium, and we do have T-shirts if you're interested. All my students who work with me get a T-shirt, and we're interested in vocalizations and their meaning for lots of different species of predators. So you've got wolves being very sociable, and you have these are stock pictures of wolves. I believe that they're both actually from Wolf Park, Indiana, which is where I used to work when I was at Case Western. But these are my pictures of dolphins cooperating. My student Mike Ward took that beautiful picture while we were out on the boat recording dolphins. And here you see some Pacific whitesides teaming up so that they can run some fish into the reef. So we're very interested in all sorts of different predators, and I'm going to start today with coyotes. And that is not a coyote, that is Rob Marr over in our engineering department, who has been absolutely wonderful. That's the fun run on Thanksgiving. I probably should tell him that I've got this picture and that I'm showing it in public. But he has been absolutely wonderful as a sound engineer to help me parse these sounds and understand methods in triangulation and so forth. So it's been wonderful that we're so interdisciplinary here at MSU. So let's try again. Hey, these are what coyotes really look like. And I've had several projects on coyotes over the last several years, partly because when I was in Cleveland, they had a very serious urban coyote problem. There are coyotes in the park, in the cemetery. The park and the cemetery are adjacent, so they're breeding, and then they come after people's dogs and cats and so on and so forth. And so there's a balance question about how do we cope with this wildlife that is so smart and adaptable, that does so well in human settings, and yet sometimes we don't always get along, like when they empty our garbage for us, and we don't want that. So I started just recording coyotes in California in 2002, and I started just because at Cornell, coyote at the time was the top carnivore that had not been recorded before. So, or they didn't have any very good recordings of coyotes. So they kind of set me off on a little journey to just get some high quality recordings, and that turned into research projects from there. I don't have my Raven software on this computer, though maybe I should make the IOE a member of my lab so that you can have Raven software. So you won't get to see the motion of the coyote calls, but you can kind of map the sound to what it looks like here on the frequency spectrum. There's a finally dog chimes in at the end, yep. So this was in Escondido, California, when all I was trying to do was get a high quality recording, but this started to spawn research questions, and so it turned into what we started to call the Urban Coyote Project. So as Rich? So I'm from Cal State Dominguez Hills originally, and one of the things that I like to do, even though I have moved around a lot, is I keep working with people who I've liked to work with on campuses. So I kept my research partners in California, and when they started to report that they had coyotes on campus, and they had coyotes in the golf park, and they had coyotes at the country club, I said, oh, well, now that I'm living in a more rural setting, let's do a little comparative study. And let's see if, like many bird species and other species, let's see if their calls change according to urban noise, and let's see if they're different in a rural setting. So I had students down in Los Angeles working at Cal State Dominguez Hills and students up here in Bozeman running around between Bozeman and Butte in the unpopulated areas looking to see if we could compare. And what we got was 36 recordings in the LA area, but all of them in Malibu Heights. We have one crappy recording of a coyote at an airport and one kind of crappy recording of a coyote at the country club. And so what we did is look at the sightings and compare them to the number of vocalizations, and we found that they talk in the suburbs, they talk and talk and talk. They're howling, they're barking every night. People say that they hear them every night. We have good evidence of that once you get out into the suburbs. But if you're in the city, maybe one little yip, very low quality, very quiet yip. So we came up with this notion that since they don't vocalize in urban areas, they must be communicating in other ways because we know that we have sightings. We check in with Long Beach City all the time and get maps of where the coyotes are. So they're there, they're cooperating, they're there in groups, but they're not making any noise. And we think it's because they know that they might be caught. So why would you like Suburbia if you're a coyote? Well, it's great. You have a few people, but not too many people. You have people who are probably likely to tolerate you that are just staying inside. You have lots of rabbits and mice and voles, all sorts of things. You have garbage, and we know that they use our structures, they use our roads, they use all sorts of things that human beings build. So they really like Suburbia. So they are there all over the place. So let me move to wolves. So we've got a couple of wolf projects going on at the Cooperative Predator Vocalization Consortium. This slide is to remind me to thank Doug Smith and Rick McIntyre, who have been wonderful to me down at Yellowstone Park. They've been working with my students. Very, very great in terms of helping us know the location of the wolves. So our main project right now is to collect wolf howls at Yellowstone. So here's a very loud wolf who is apparently right under the recorder. So we got that in November, and we were thrilled because they're howling much more now. So my students are going down every Sunday now to collect howls. So the objective of the current project that we have in Yellowstone is that we have 5 recorders that we put in a U shape around the wolf locations, and we're trying to passively localize individuals and to target the movement of the packs in the park. So we get information right now from the radio collars, and that helps us place the 5 recorders each week around where we think a pack is going to be around a rendezvous site. And as we move into spring, it will be maybe closer to a den site as they settle down a little bit. Or if we get information on a kill, we'll put them around the kill site. We have one recording of bones crunching, which was a very interesting day in the lab as we sat there going, what is that? Are they eating? Is that crunching? So right now what we're trying to do, and we've had great initial success, is track individuals and the motion of packs, and we've done very well. So we have initial results saying that we can do it, and what this means in the long run is that maybe we won't have to collar the wolves anymore in order to know where they are, because we can just use triangulation to find out where these packs are and where they're moving. Now we'd need a lot of recorders to cover the park, and we wouldn't be able to cover the whole park, but it's a way, since collaring is so invasive and so problematic for the wolves, it's a way to maybe help them out a little bit as they're repopulating in Yellowstone. This project has spawned lots of student research experiences. This is my current project leader, Jackson Engel. This is Amy Fontaine. She was my graduate student who was here last semester, and she's just run off to study hyenas in Kenya. So she'll be back in a year perhaps to do some more work at MSU. And that is actually our Tribble, which helps us do all of our research if you're a Star Trek fan. So this is just a quick list of students. I don't think you can even read it back there, but we just hit the 30 mark. I've had 30 students working on a coyote or a wolf project since I've come to MSU in 2009. So lots of students having great research experiences. I'd like to give a shout out to my research partner, Arik. He has the Canid Howl project that he founded. It's an experiment in crowdsourcing howl analysis. So what it asks you to do is sort howls by the contour, and what we found statistically so far is that amateurs are just as good at it as experts. So I'm going to give you a demo of how you can do some citizen science in the Howl project. So I'll just be me, right? So you enter yourself and you say, get me an image. And it takes a little minute to load these complex howls. Hopefully, yeah, there we go. Come on, come down. All right, so you can see the howl and it'll play for you. A beautiful chorus howl clip, right? And so what you want to do is trace. Oops. So you're going to say, this is one individual right here. And then stop. And then, it will not let me stop. Click to stop. And then you would go up, and here's another individual here. It will not let me let that go. But you get the idea. So here's one individual and out there. Oh, it almost let me let it go. Right, so one individual and stop. Another individual is up here. Another individual is down here. Another individual is down here. I don't know why it's still attached to my mouse. Usually it's not. But you can color code the different individuals. And that way, this is very, very labor intensive. And you can talk to my students and they will say, yes, I just scroll for hours and hours through crickets and people hiking and being silly with each other and more crickets and more crickets. And they'll finally get to a howl. We process that howl and we put it in the bank of process. But we have gigabytes of data that is waiting to be processed. So if you have students, send them to me. But also we're trying this crowdsourcing thing, and it seems like the average person, once they read the instructions, can do pretty well in separating individuals. And we do know that wolves have signature howls. So if we get a good enough catalog, we can ID each individual just using this kind of software. On to cats. Okay. So it's the Cooperative Predator Vocalization Consortium, and yet cats are fabled to be not cooperative predators. And yet, if you let them out in the wild, they are very social. They form colonies. Sometimes colonies of hundreds of cats will inhabit abandoned buildings. So it seems like they do get together. They do not hang out by themselves, and they're cooperative in a number of ways. Maybe hunting, maybe not. The evidence is much more anecdotal. It seems like, much like wolves hunt prey that's larger than them almost all the time, right? So they have to work in groups so that they can bring down the larger animal. It seems that when cats are confronted with only larger animals, that they will actually form cooperative groups to bring them down. So if they're hunting a pheasant or something, you might actually see that. But it's so anecdotal that we don't know, because usually cats just catch voles and mice and birds, and it's one-on-one, and it's easy and fast. But we do know that they do all these other cooperative things. Related females will nest guard. This is a picture, actually, of two sisters, and they are in a corner in an area guarding a nest. They're sharing nursing. In larger feral cat colonies, you will actually have cats that seem to be hormonally a little different from the other cats. So they're natural nursemaids. They love to nurse. They have extra estrogen. They have extra, I'm spacing the trust hormone, oxytocin. Thank you. So they seem to do this. So I have actually seen instances of kill sharing. They'll go out, bring in a kill, make a kill call, and others will come and others will eat it. And it seems to be just brought to them. In fact, I saw a lot of this when I did the feral cat project. So lots of reasons to believe that feral cats are in fact cooperative. We also know, we know very little about their vocalizations, but we know that they're much more diverse than domestic cats. So you've got peak frequency is higher, broader range of frequencies, many more different kinds of calls that have not been categorized. It's the paper that I'm working on this weekend. Whereas what has been published on domestic cats, and mind you, it seems like there are only 4 or 5 articles on domestic cat vocalizations. I think this is all very new and very tenuous. But we have information on their behaviors, that they seem to be jealous, that they prefer to be the only cat, and that there are officially accepted only 3 vocalization types. So a murmur with the mouth closed, a meow where the mouth opens and then closes, and then like a hiss with a tense open mouth. So those are the 3 accepted categories. I suspect that this is probably wrong. Anybody who has a cat may suspect that this is probably wrong, but this is sort of the beginning, is that we have this sketchy literature that says that feral cats vocalize more and in more diverse ways. So thanks to MSU Iacocca proving me, I had a feral cat study for the last 2 summers. I've had a total of 30 feral cats in my basement to date. And the aim of the project, yes, I know, I am a cat lady. The aim of the project, and this is where the library's equipment was used, is to socialize the cats so that they are able to be adopted into homes so that they don't have to live out in the cold anymore. And of course, when they're feral, they are very frightened of humans. They hiss, they growl. I haven't had adult males yet. I haven't had approval to have adult males yet, and I'm glad, because they urinate, and they'll urinate all over my basement. So I've had mostly mothers and kittens, and we socialize the kittens and make an attempt to socialize the mom. So these are classic features of feral cats. They don't need, they don't purr, they don't approach humans, they don't make eye contact with humans or blink at humans. They don't lick their lips at humans, interestingly. They will not do any sort of litter box activity in the daytime, and they will not solicit play. They will hiss and retreat, and they will stare with great big frightened eyes. So we have a ranking system where if they have all of these features, they're scored at a 5, 7. If they have 7 or 8 of the features, they're scored at a 5. If they have 5 to 6 of the features, they're scored at a 4. Domestic is when they have absolutely none of the features, and then they are ready to be adopted, and we bring them back to the shelter. So we tried all sorts of methods. We stuck primarily to Ken Ramirez's method. He's the trainer at Shed Aquarium, and he's a real lion tamer, and we just borrowed his methods. So our methods are: do not approach the animals at any time, right? You always give the animal a choice to come to you. So there's a lot of philosophy under there regarding the choice of the animal in a stressful domestic situation, free will of the animal to come to you if it likes. And so then you offer incentives for them to come to you. So no food without people. You bring the food into the room. If you get up for just a second, even to get the phone, you bring the food out with you, because a feral animal will land on the food the minute you're out of the room, eat it all, and then your experiment is over for the day. So make them come to you. My students were instructed to do that first. You can also solicit play, so you can get a little cat stick and try to draw them out, because they do have that predator response, so they will come towards you. And then as the cats get more familiar with you, it's the kinky study. So you lie down on the floor, and you get lunch meat. Put it up your arm, put it on your stomach, and get the cats to come to you. They love ham, they love turkey, and they'll slowly approach, and that gets them used to humans. They lick your skin when they take it off, so they get used to your smell, they get used to how your skin tastes, and they become more and more habituated to humans. We found that with kittens, it really takes about 2 weeks or even less to get them habituated to humans, and then they're cuddly and they're sweet and they're ready to be adopted. Older cats are more challenging. Got to work with them longer. So my students came up with all of these variations. We've had reading aloud, just talking on the phone where the cats are in the room. We played them lots of internet videos. One of my favorite stories is I had a feral female. She was 6 months old, and she had 6 kittens, right? And she would go hide under the bed when I came in the room, but they were so young that they were hardly even, they didn't have all their visual acuity yet. They didn't have all of their hearing yet. And I left the video stream on at night, so I just left YouTube on. I came in the morning with food, and they were all curled up at the end of the box with their paws on top of the box, watching Beyonce do Single Ladies. And it was just because it was the only moving thing in the room. They were fascinated. So other stimuli, I've had students bring in dirty shirts so they could familiarize themselves with the smell, pine cones, rocks and sticks. And then especially I would like to highlight Moon is not my student. Moon is my cat. He is this cat being goofy here. Moon was fascinated, absolutely fascinated with the Feral Cat Project. And so he would come downstairs with me every morning, and he brought them 17 voles over the course of the summer. 17 voles. Now, this could be, maybe he's just friendly. Maybe it's because there is an unaltered female in the house, and this is a way of saying, hey, baby, you know, I'm a great hunter. He seemed very curious about the kittens as well, so there might be some sort of teaching to hunt or gift factor involved. We're not sure what it is, but there were 17 separate instances of gifts of voles to the ladies. So, does socialization impact vocalization? We know that it impacts behaviors, right? We know that we make them adoptable. But do they start out with one set of vocalizations, as the literature suggests, and then do they adopt another set of vocalizations? So my quick answer is there's some evidence that they do shift and they do change. My second answer is I'm still working on the data. And my third answer is one of the really exciting, interesting things is that there are so many call categories that just don't appear in the literature at all, that are just completely unclassified, and they do correlate with behavioral context. So this is what I'm going to tell you about. Most of my evidence right now is from the 2014 subject sets when I had 12 cats. I expanded that the following summer to include 18 more, so I now have a sample size of 30, which is a little bit better. There's still a lot of problems. They are usually moms with kittens, so they're all genetically related. So we're going to have this huge factor of is this about, you know, this family resemblance in calls, and I don't have a sample size big enough to sort all that out yet. But we do know that we have these specific call categories that emerged. So I'm going to focus especially on family number 2 because they were the most vocal, and they were very, very interesting because, well, you generally think of female cats as going into heat every 6 months, so litters being about 6 months apart. In the wild, they can, that cycle can change to be as frequent as every 2 weeks. So you actually never really know if kittens are related to the mother cat or not, or if she's a nursemaid. We kind of think that she was a nursemaid because of her behaviors, but so she came with a 4.5-month-old kitten and a 5-week-old kitten, which doesn't sound right, but maybe she cycled early, or maybe she was the nursemaid. They look alike, but maybe the whole colony looked alike, so we don't really know if they were related or not. So that are my categories, and I will ask our fabulous tech to crank up the volume because some of these are a little bit quiet. So that is correlated with unpleasant circumstances, the humans approaching too quickly, and so on. Some of these have fewer behavioral correlates. This is just a meow. You just hear this a lot. Oops. Hey, go back. Go back. Go. This is purring, and again, this is going to need a little bit of volume because purrs are so low. So as they're starting to become socialized, they would purr more and more, but they also purr while they're nursing. So we know that the shelter standard of what is feral and what is domestic isn't quite right because they will purr when they nurse. Getting into some of the more sophisticated sounds. We started calling this a hum. Maybe we need to rename it. Right, so this is more of a play sound. This is the strongest correlation we have. This is an unhappy cat. So we would generally get these calls on the first day. So these are all cats, they're entering a new house, it's a new environment, it smells different, there are all sorts of threats, they're not used to the sounds of a human house, the refrigerator going, the dishwasher, all of these human sounds. And this is correlated with hurling oneself against a window to try to escape. So I did have someone, I presented some of this at a conference in Australia, and I had someone come up to me and said that she had a cat who had a liver disorder, and that cat was in pain in the last several months of her life and also made this noise. So anecdotal evidence that maybe this is internal or external discomfort. So many questions left to ask. This call rose to 71% of the calls the day after I took the kittens to the vet. All right, so that might be a location call. And one of our most successful sets of stimuli is we bought them grass one day. They had just, different kinds of grass on sale. So you could get grass in a tray, and we brought it into the room. The grass was such an important reward for them that we got so that we had to take it out of the room because they wouldn't pay attention to us, they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't do anything. It became more important than food. So they really liked the grass. And these chirps are the chirps that they started making the day that we got them the grass. And when we would bring the grass in the room, this would be the primary call. Let's see if I can get it to come back. I love that sound. That is a very unusual cat sound. See if I can get it to go there. Come on. Okay. So, very preliminary conclusions. There are at least 12 call types. The calls do seem to simplify as cats become more domestic, but the truth is I need so many more cats and so much more data to really make that claim that I need to be cautious at this point. They definitely do co-vary with behavior, and they do seem to have different functions like locating your kittens, locating your mom, soothing signals, distress signals, and greeting and attention seeking. So as I said, there are flaws with the study. I need a lot more cats. And there are other deep questions that I don't even know how to cope with quite in my paper yet. Sometimes they would talk all the time. There were just calls. Some days were full of calls. Other days we'd go through the recordings and they would just have been quiet all day long. So I don't know what that's about. My big question and where I'd like to see the work go is we know that we do have calls that are specific within species. We have some evidence that calls change as we're exposed to other species. So as cats are exposed to humans, it looks like the calls change. As coyotes are exposed to humans, they get quieter. Right? So we have this kind of big, broad background picture. And then you get pictures like that. And this is just robbed from the internet shamelessly. But what's up? There are cats and a raccoon interacting. I have no idea what's going on there. But I wonder if there is yet a third set of call types that one might find when you see two of these species interacting rather than a change in call with cats and humans or cat to cat. So what's up with this? I would like to find out. I guess I need to get a raccoon. So thank you to the many, 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 many people who have helped me do this. And this is one of my other favorite cat noises. They would make this noise when we would come in the room and when we would leave the room. So it seems to be something like aloha. Questions?
So I'm wondering so you leave the recorders on continuously.
I have, yes. Initially, we left them on.
Do you have like computer processes to find the calls, or does someone just sit there and listen to it?
I have students. Yeah, I have students. And yes, you can program Raven to do okay in terms of call location automatically, but it's not great. It's still not a person. It seems like the very best programmers still only catch about 85% of the calls, and so it really is best to grab a student, hand them an internship, give them a bunch of stuff to read, and have them scroll through as part of their work and log when the calls are. Okay?
Yeah, when you just kind of sum up, when you're doing research, sort of the difference in doing research from someone in the philosophy department versus from a philosophical standpoint versus
You know, I don't know if I can. I know that it depends on where I'm publishing. So if I'm working on a philosophy paper, yes, I'll take these statistics, and I think that these categories are important, but I'm much more likely to dare to talk about meaning, and dare to talk about mind, and dare to talk about consciousness, and different conceptual sets. I'm very interested in this basic question of you have two people, and we understand each other most of the time when we talk, right? And then occasionally you don't get what that other person said or what they did, and you're kind of baffled by it. And it's because people don't map onto people perfectly. So it seems like we have great understandings with other species, right? We do very well with dogs. We do very well with cats. Many people do well with birds, right? So we must have some conceptual overlap or we wouldn't have any cooperation at all. We must have some conceptual overlap where the coyotes wouldn't use our roadways and our buildings. So there's something going on where there's a similarity. So what are the similarities and what are the differences, and can we map them, can we locate them, can we find them in vocalization? So as a philosopher, I'll jump into those deep waters. The paper that I'm writing now is for current zoology, and you know, anyone who is a zoologist is invited to help me now because I know that I have to stick much more to this is the data, these are the categories we found, and much less speculation. So I'm learning as I go. I've gotten maybe so interdisciplinary that I'm needing help from other people. Yeah.
So to me, it's very interesting to think about feral cats being social, and you mentioned lions. We certainly have this perception of African lions.
Yes.
American lions and bobcats, definitely not.
Yeah, so many cats are solitary. One of the jokes that we have in the Cooperative Predator Vocalization Consortium is one of our partners is Bilal, and he works in India and he works with tigers, and they're not cooperative. Tigers are just not cooperative. I mean, they get together to mate, and that's about it. So it's like, how is he part of the consortium? Well, we're interested in predators, and we're interested in cooperation, and sometimes those don't overlap as much as we want to. But yeah, so lions became my initial model for feral cats because they will grow up, they do cooperatively hunt. You get all of these interesting features. But weirdly, lions don't vocalize very much. So now you have the problem of, we know that lions have been observed, they all sit together before they hunt. So they're sitting together and they're looking at each other. They don't say very much to each other. So we don't have, it's not like they're having a conference, right? It's not this vocal exchange of you go left and I'll go right and I'll go around that one. And you know, doesn't seem to be anything like that. And yet you have the feral cats and they are so chatty, they are talking all the time. So lions may be a model, but probably to explore new explanations.
But when they do talk, are they similar? Are the patterns similar?
You know, I need to go get a research partner who studies lions because I don't have any lion recordings, and I would love to get some. That would be a great way to take this project. Other questions? Yeah.
my indoor cat. She doesn't go out, except it's very, very interesting. She'll go out on the deck in the summer, but doesn't leave the deck.
Doesn't leave the deck.
Doesn't leave the deck. She'll sit on the edge and watch birds, but she doesn't leave the deck. And she doesn't meow a lot. Only when she wants the window open. You know, she jumps on the cold
Tells you that she wants
the window and she'll meow for me to open it up. But she doesn't decay verbally. She'll let me know when she's hungry. She comes and taps me on the nose in the morning. Is that unusual? That she's a solitary indoor cat?
What would she have to talk about, and who does she have to talk to?
Yeah,
and
I talk to her.
And you don't get an answer?
No, not so much.
Huh.
No. But she knows my tone of voice that...
Is to respond.
Yeah, she responds. Oh, yeah.
But doesn't talk. Well, how old?
She'll be 4 years old in May.
So maybe just not very chatty.
No, she's not.
So I have 4 domestics, and one talks all the time. He just talks all the time. And I have read, and again, the problem is that the literature on cats is so thin. right? So it's like you get this anecdotal evidence that, yeah, generally in a house with several domestic cats, one will talk and the other will be quiet. And that seems to be true at my house. So you get this sort of lore in the background. But maybe she has a rapport with you where she knows how to get the window open, she knows how to get fed, and there isn't much else to say.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I did have a pair that were brothers. And one was very, very chatty.
So yeah, you had...
come in the front door and you wanted to slice it.
Yes.
Wouldn't leave you alone until you sat down. The other was like a lion, very aloof.
Huh. So yeah, so that maps onto this pattern too. So that might be worth exploring. One of my research partners, she used to work at Kent State, Penny Bernstein, said, you know, we don't get research funding to study cats. So there's this lore in the background that cats rub up against things because they have scent glands in their faces, da-da-da-da. And she said, I've searched. I'm a biologist. I've searched everywhere. No one has done a study on this. There is nothing published that says that cats have scent glands in their faces and that that's why they're rubbing up against things. So it's probably true. I believe that people do anatomy. I believe that we've dissected cats before, but it's not out there in the literature. So we go on just these sort of cat stories of, oh, there's one that'll be chatty and then the rest will be quiet, or they're rubbing because they're rubbing their scent on things. And we don't know, not scientifically.
Like
So
humans.
what percentage of all their communication is vocal? What percent are they just doing visual communication? Or
Man.
watching the movements of,
For cats?
yeah.
I mean,
Or feral cats. Do you have any idea?
super hard to tell. One of the things that was very hard in the study is that the shelter would class them as feral, and it seemed like by the end of the study what we knew is that feral meant we found them outside. So we would have you would have real genuinely feral cats that would run away from you, and the kittens definitely would watch the behavior of the mother and imitate it. If the mother's hissing, the kittens will hiss. If the mother is hiding, the kittens will try to follow her. So you get that imitation for sure, but then you'd get other feral families that were like not feral, where the mom would come up and be like, hi, you got some food for me? And the kittens would all be like, mew, mew, mew. You know, they're totally domestic animals that just happen to have been found outside. So I need a lot more subjects, but that's a great question, right? And one of the things that I did come up with is I was just running audio recording 24 hours a day, and I realized that I couldn't just monitor when my students were in the room taking notes for behaviors, because we would get all of these calls that were just in the middle of the night. And it's like, well, maybe there is something going on. Maybe there's a bird out the window, or maybe, maybe there is a communication going on. So I've started to video record, but we're just at the dawn of video recording so that I can map every vocalization onto every behavior, and then I'll know a lot more. Other questions? Okay.
Thank you very much.